Hello and welcome to another edition of the Door 14 Hockey Podcast. I'm your host Marty alongside Dave.
Hello.
And who's rocking away there as the song was going. Aaron, how you doing?
Hey everybody, I'm good. How are you?
No John tonight. He messaged about 45 minutes ago to say that he was unwell. So hope he's feeling better soon. But we have you both returning tonight. These were both missing in action in our last podcast, which was me and John here. Dave, I believe our last podcast you were actually over in Bonnie, Scotland for a family event.
It was, yeah. Caught the away game.
I was just about to say you went to the Glasgow game, but when you were in Glasgow, you were actually there as a fan, not as a neutral, which we will come back to later on this podcast. And Aaron, you were in Boston, I think, for work.
I was in Boston for work, yes. But I got this. I finally, after all those times being away, finally got to go to a Boston game, which was good fun. And I forgot I meant to grab it. I have the absolute best present that I bought for Theo coming out of the game. I showed you. It's a Teddy Zamboni.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's the best thing I've like. I want one of these for the Giants. Thanks very much. We'll put in a request.
And you were in Boston there, obviously as a neutral fan. You had
as a neutral fan. I actually think I'm going to need to start like. This is going to sound strange, but like loaning myself out. When you want a team to do badly, send me.
Okay.
Right. Like, so that was there was two games that week. There was the one on the Tuesday, which was against Calgary Flames. And then there was one on the Monday, which was, who was it against? Vancouver. Okay. So we went to the Calgary Flame ones going, right, they're at the bottom of the Pacific League. Boston will absolutely rock this. No. Hammered. Boston were played probably the most uninspiring game they've ever played this season. They got one goal only by the fact that they were on a what was that, a power play, 3 players to 5. Where then the following on the Thursday night they beat Vancouver, no problem, 4-0. So yeah, just send me to the games that you want the teams to lose. That's fine.
I was saying, I can't remember if I was saying this in the podcast last week the last podcast to John, or if I was in our group chat maybe, but it's definitely one of those arenas. Boston's one of those arenas that I have seen and I've been outside, and I've got a picture of me with the statue outside.
Same.
But I haven't actually been in the arena, which was
I thought you had
sad,
been in.
Was, no. When I was there, it was Thanksgiving. I was there on Thanksgiving itself, and yeah, there was no games or anything on. So unfortunately, I didn't catch a game, which was sad. But
it was good. It had similar vibes to Vegas. Not maybe not as grand as the biggest walk up, but because maybe it's a big walk up because you're bang in the center of the city, where Vegas was more open. You know, where with in Boston, it's in between the buildings, and you're walking up to it, and it's really crowded. It was good, and then of course the arena itself was pretty good, pretty awesome. But 20 pound beers, 25 pound beers is not fun.
Ooh, that's pricey.
Maybe not 25.
Unlike Dave. Unlike Dave, your adventures to Guildford there, which we hadn't talked about. Obviously, I know John talked about it in the last podcast, but your adventures in Guildford, the beers there were cheap, I heard.
They were dirt cheap, but you had to walk up 3 flights of stairs to get them.
Well,
it is
good.
It's a leisure center at the end of the day. And then
you had to sit and drink it.
You know,
you had to get your beer and sit and drink it, watching over the pool, which is a bit surreal. Not even lying.
Pool?
Yeah. Where the bar is on one side, it's glass on both sides. One side's the drink, the other side's the pool.
Really crazy.
I don't know how to react to this.
It's an experience.
Guys, if you guys are happy enough, I'm gonna get on with this week's show. If this is your first podcast, if it's the first time you've joined us, our podcast covers stories from around the world in 3 different periods, just like a game of hockey. It's a topical podcast where we just talk about any stories that have, I suppose, caught our attention over the course of the last 2 weeks since our last recording. We start off our show as we always do, and we take a look at the Elite League standings, followed by the NHL standings as they currently are on February 21st, I want to say it is. 22nd. February 22nd, 23rd if you're listening to this, because it's Friday. If you're listening to it, but if you're watching this live, it's obviously a Thursday. Anyway, confusing. But we'll get stuck in and we'll look at the Elite League and look at the standings as they currently are. Now, sitting first in the top spot still is the Sheffield Steelers with 38 games played at 69 points. The Cardiff Devils follow in second with 38 games played at 55 points. The Belfast Giants have moved back up into third place with 38 games played at 46 points. And Guildford moved down into fourth with 39 games played at 44 points. Coventry Blaze sit in fifth with 38 games played at 42 points. Dundee are in sixth with 39 games played at 38 points. Manchester are in seventh with 39 games played at 38 points. And the Glasgow Clan hold in the eighth spot there with 39 games played at 37 points. The Fife Flyers are in ninth still with 41 games played, 35 points. And the Panthers are sitting bottom with 37 games played and 33 points. Boys, it's been a while since I've got your opinions on the league standings. Dave, I know particularly for yourself, you haven't been with us for I think maybe 2 podcasts, maybe, but yeah, so it would be kind of good to get your thoughts on this. But Sheffield Steelers sitting top, significant point difference there between first and second. Cardiff obviously went on a really nice run of form there, putting it was 12 games together of a run, being defeated there last night in Nottingham. Your thoughts? Sheffield 69 points, 38 games played, another month and a bit to play.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice to see the games played now starting to even out. There for a while there was, crazy numbers on either side of it, and you didn't know who had played what and who was still due. Steelers this year are a force. They're phenomenal to watch, and they're just scoring goals for fun, and I think that's probably going to continue through to the end of the season. They've clinched their playoff spot, which is good for them. Happy days. Cardiff as well. They've done what Cardiff is always a challenger, or they at least have been the last few seasons. And it's great to see at least them pushing, because there's a bit of a gap now between them and second and third. I think it's really a 2-horse race at this stage. If something goes wrong at Sheffield, Cardiff might be able to pounce on it. It's going to be a tough ask for anybody at the moment, but never say never and all that. And we'll just see how the rest of the year pans out. It's been definitely pretty eventful. As you see the stats, they all sort of condense, get closer together after that second and the third and downwards.
It's interesting you went for first to Cardiff jump on the first. I actually thought it was more of a fight between the Devils and the Giants, to be fair. It was a fight for second place at this stage. But of course, I would all for the Cardiff to prove me wrong.
Yeah, and it was good to see.
Sorry, go ahead, Dave.
It was good to see, like when I was away watching Glasgow, as much as we have won the game and ran away with it near the end, that team is really good. They took an early 3-goal lead in the first 10 minutes, so they can put the puck in the net. So their league position doesn't really show their capabilities, so you never know with so they're still are they still in for the Challenge Cup, or am I?
Mm-hmm. So the Challenge Cup is Guildford and Cardiff. I guess what I was going to say there, sorry for butting in, Dave. What I was going to say was, and it kind of coming back to something you were saying there, Aaron, the Sheffield, Cardiff, and Giants kind of 1, 2, and 3 there. I get what you mean about the Cardiff Devils and the Belfast Giants kind of still fighting for that second, third spot. But at this stage, I just think that the Giants don't have the capability to catch up with the Cardiff and the Sheffields. In terms of Sheffield and Dave, what you were saying there in terms of that top spot and kind of like, is it close enough for Devils to kind of catch up with if Sheffield kind of, if the train comes off the tracks there, it's very hard to see that at this point of Sheffield kind of doing something that's going to be so. Now, never say never, because obviously we've seen that happen in the past. But at this stage, when we think about the fact that we're now towards the end of February, we've got one more weekend. We've got 2 weekends left, I think, of February technically. I just think we've only got one full month then after that, March, and one weekend in April, so we've got like literally about 8 weeks maybe max of play left in this league before we hit the playoff run, and I just don't see it. I suppose that brings us to the next question then. Obviously Sheffield are in the running for the Challenge Cup still. They're in the Challenge Cup final against Guildford, and obviously the talk is Belfast Giants did it last year of the domestic treble, and Sheffield obviously getting a lot of pressure put on their shoulders already for the fact that they've been dominant in the league, they're in the Challenge Cup final, and people are saying this is the best team that's been put together, playoffs and stuff. But I guess is there a thought in the process in that Cardiff and Belfast are kind of giving it their all, and therefore potentially comes to playoffs could give them a different run for their money when it comes to playoff hockey? Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it could.
Go ahead, Dave.
It could. It's playoff hockey. It can go anyway. It's all bets are off, especially that weekend. You're sitting. Go into the game. Anybody can win it. That's why it's been so hard for teams to come away with the treble. It's it's so difficult for a reason. Because you go into that Nottingham weekend, and all it takes is one bad shift, not even one bad game, one bad shift, and that's you gone. It's your season over. So yes, it's possible that team can do it. It's also possible they could walk away with just the league, or they could walk away with nothing. So it's not over till it's over, as they say.
They seem to be doing well with the pressure at the moment, though.
Yeah, no, definitely.
As more like touch wood. Well, no, not touch wood. Let the wheels come off. but yeah, they seem to be doing all right with the pressure, and as kind of already alluded to, like there's a precedent set from last year that the Giants can do it, so maybe they are right to prove themselves. So, but
the biggest pressure they have, the biggest pressure the Steelers has is for Aaron Fox. That's he's third year, no trophies, so like he'll want to take away everything. And it looks like he's definitely obviously top contender for the league, probably top contender for the Challenge Cup, and then we'll see how the playoff goes. But he's sort of justifying his career in Sheffield. So if you take the Giants as an example, if you were to compare his first 3 seasons with Steelers to Adam Keefe's 3 seasons for the Giants, I know which one I would be taking. Because the Giants won 2 championships in those years. So, so that's sort of, he's got big shoes to fill if he's wanting to compare himself to Kiefer.
And it's crazy to think that we're talking, obviously, we're talking about Aaron Fox there and about how, obviously this would be a phenomenal season for him in terms of, his third season in and getting, basically walking away with silverware, and it's taken him 3 seasons. Because if we think like, when we were playoffs there last April, the conversations were being had and the rumors were being put out there after a very different about Aaron Fox, whether or not he would be getting another season with the Steelers, and there was a whole conversation around whether or not he'd be let go for the offseason. Oh yeah, and it's so funny to be sitting here now.
Didn't he walk off before the end or something like that as well? Like that was a major part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and he didn't. Yeah, he walked off towards the end of the game, and well, I think it was the third place game, wasn't it? I think, but it was still kind of one of those ones where one of his main players was retiring, and I suppose that was why people were kind of a bit like upset with how it all happened. But anyway, we'll see what happens, and by the time it comes to the next podcast, we'll probably have a better understanding whether or not anybody's been able to catch up with the Steelers, because I don't think they will.
So you might see it more of a fight between Belfast, Guildford and Coventry then
for third place.
Yeah.
I think so. I think where we're currently sitting is first and second. I think are kind of cemented. I think that's kind of how they're going to end the season. And I think the question will be who ends in that third, fourth, and fifth spots. And I think while I would like to see the Giants still hold on to that third spot, we know that the Giants will have they're gonna come up against the Steelers at the end of the season. And whether or not the Steelers turn up, because obviously if they've already cemented the league and they've already, kind of, I'm not saying they wouldn't turn up, but you know what I mean? There's other things, stranger things have happened. But I think that third and fourth, particularly Belfast and Guildford, and obviously Coventry to an extent, I think there's still going to be a bit of a fight there for 3, 4, and 5. Look at the bottom though, guys, just get your thoughts. Obviously we've got the Glasgow Clan sitting in 8th spot and Manchester sitting in 7th, 38 points and 37 points apiece. And then the 5 Flyers are sitting in 9th with 35, and Nottingham in 10th with 33. Are we likely to see those last remaining playoff spots switch around in any way, or do we think that's kind of like where we were seeing those teams finish at the end of the season? Dave?
It's going to be I want to say we'll see shifts. I want to see Nottingham pull off that bottom. It's got to be tough for them. I think that team being through the ringer, I think they deserve a playoff spot. Just give them a fitting send off in the final weekend if it was possible. But play wise, they haven't been consistent enough. And this exact same issue with the Flyers. They've been some nights they've been phenomenal. Like I've watched them play and they've been brilliant. Like they've played like a team possessed, and then some other nights they just don't hack it, and that's the consistency's letting both those sides down. And as I said, the Glasgow Clan, that team is really good, and they're really quick and physical. And I would have expected them to be higher if I was just going on watching them play.
Yeah. Yep. Aaron, anything to add to that before we move on?
No, just kind of echoing what Dave was saying about Nottingham. I could see them coming up from 10th place. You would like to see them get even higher. But they've got 4 games in hand from the 5 Flyers, so you can see that going up. Moving on from them, it's good to see Dundee up at least 6th. So it is. That's a big change from the previous season. So I think I've said that like for the last 4 or 5 podcasts in a row that I've been on. It's like look at Dundee being up there,
getting lightheaded there.
I mean, it I suppose when it comes to Dundee, it is kind of their kind of thing would be, small gains. They did say this year, kind of obviously this first year into a new coach and a new kind of, leadership there in Dundee. And I suppose it's kind of like small gains over the course of this year. I suppose it's a positive thing for them in some ways. So I'd agree with you. I don't know if I expected maybe one of the other Scottish teams maybe be just slightly further ahead by this point of the season. I think there's big things being claimed about Glasgow originally, the massive at the start of the season, and I think that hasn't really panned out maybe as they would hope, as they were hoping for.
Was it Glasgow doing the gold chains? Who was doing? Was it Glasgow?
No, it was Cardiff. It was Cardiff.
That was Cardiff.
No, it was Cardiff.
Oh yes, with Cardiff. The new logo.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Any excuse to talk about it.
Exactly. Well, I'm going to leave it at that, and I'm going to switch my attention across the water, and we're going to take a quick look at the NHL and the current standings over there in the wild card spots as of February 21st again. Yes. 22nd. Oh my God. Anyway, Eastern Conference and Atlantic Division, the Boston Bruins still sit top with 57 games played, 79 points. The Florida Panthers are in second place, close by actually, with 56 games and 78 points. And the Toronto Maple Leafs sit in third with 55 games played and 70 points. The Metropolitan then division, we've got the New York Rangers sitting 56 games played, 77 points in first place there. The Carolina Hurricanes are in second with 55 games played, 71 points. And the Philadelphia Flyers are still holding their spot there in third with 57 games played and 67 points. 2 wildcard spots held by Tampa and Detroit at this time. Over the other side of the country, in the western side of things, in the Central Division, Dallas Stars, I was going to say All Stars. The Dallas Stars are sitting in first with 57 games played, 76 points. The Colorado Avalanche are in second with 57 games played, 74 points. And the Winnipeg Jets are in third with 54 games played, 73 points. Pacific Division, then the last division is Vancouver Canucks sitting in first with 58 games played, 80 points. The Vegas Golden Knights are in second with 56 games played, 70 points. And the Edmonton Oilers are in third, 53 games played, 68 points. The wildcard spots currently held by the LA Kings and St. Louis Blues. Let's go back to the eastern side of things, and obviously then you've seen the Bruins that are playing, Aaron, and they've been having quite a dominant season again this year. I mean, from the game you watched, obviously they lost in that game.
You wouldn't have thought it. You wouldn't have thought it. They honestly, I would have more than happy been at home watching the Giants game. Watching that team. Now, sorry, the experience was amazing, and going to an NHL game was so much fun. But the team themselves were not inspiring at all that night. It's so mean saying that, but I think I just picked the wrong night to go. So I did.
Oh. Dave, obviously Boston holding their form there, and Florida Panthers are kind of creeping up really closely behind them with a game in hand and 1 point behind there. They've also got a massive 0.51 goal difference, and they seem to have kind of came out of nowhere and kind of crept in there this season, having performed quite well. I mean, any other teams caught your attention?
When you start seeing teams like Florida, started getting stringing wins together. You're talking 6 wins in the trot there, but New York Rangers, in my opinion, have found an extra gear. They have really started to string the wins together. I think they're coming in on 8 wins on the trot, and I'm never a fan of watching. I've been seeing the Rangers play. I went to the Madison Square Garden, but it's not a team I would be rooting for. Put it that way. But it's nice to see them in the top tiers again, because for a very long time there they were extremely mediocre. And coming from a Wild fan, I know what mediocre is. But yeah, so it's been interesting. On other news though, the Minnesota Wild had a roller coaster of a few matches.
I meant to say to you, I was on a meeting yesterday, and one of the guys was wearing a Wild jersey, and of course this guy lives in Minnesota, and we were talking about that game. He was at it.
Oh, was he?
and he was just like, the atmosphere was absolutely insane in that third period. Sorry, you might need to shed some light onto that particular game.
The Canucks? No. Was it Canucks? I've got it somewhere. And it was down 5-1 at one point, and then the Wild went on to win it 9.
Yeah, it was something 7 or something, or 5,
10-7. 10-7.
Yeah, 10-7.
Yeah, and it was just, and it was 3 goals in the first starting third period, and the 5 minutes there was 4 goals or something daft. It was bonkers. And it's not something you'd want to watch all the time, but as a one-off, it was fab. And it was an early face-off, so I got to watch the vast majority of it, which was great. Normally, you don't get,
I love those.
I got to see more. Got to see more Wild goals in that one game than I've seen all season.
I was going to mention, obviously, the Wild, obviously they have kind of had a small bit of run of form. Obviously, the last podcast we were chatting, you weren't here, Dave, but the Minnesota Wild were sitting down, I think, in 8th spot, moving up now into 4th spot there. And Nashville obviously have moved down from 2nd wild card spot into 3rd, unfortunately. But Aaron, coming to you. Coming to you. There is, and we always talk about how tight that division is, and we always talk about how quickly things change there. But Aaron, coming to you, Philadelphia Flyers still sitting there in 3rd place in the Metropolitan Division, holding their own.
I'm in
playoff hockey this season.
I don't even know if I want to talk about it. I talked to as I said earlier, as if I watch games, it's just it's they're going to lose. So it's a fair difference than the last couple of seasons of these podcasts that we've been talking about. They've always been, as Dave said, we've been used to mediocre, and I'm always in the corner going, "Oh, here, this is the season, lads. This is the seasons." It's scaring me now because we're actually we're keeping that third position.
You'll have to start watching Preds games to give the Wild a chance, and just to make make our extra friend go.
Slide us 20 quid, Dave, and I'll start watching some Preds
games. And obviously Toronto holding their space there, their spot there in third still. Similar to the last podcast we were recording. Austin Matthews still doing some beautiful things there in Toronto. I think he's now on 51 goals as of last night, I think, or 51 as of either last night or last night I think it was. 51 goals, and I think it's his 5th or 6th hat trick of the season so far. He's on fire this season. He really is. I think I think it's going to be a personal best for him this season. And I think there's also talk of the Hart Trophy and stuff for him as well this season. So I don't know. We'll see.
Cannot wait to see them, all those names play in the Olympics. It's gonna be awesome.
Yes, you missed that, but we are coming back to the Olympics in period 2. So we will have a quick chat about that in period 2. We kind of had a brief chat about that in our last podcast, but it'd be kind of great to get your thoughts on that, because obviously that story did come out just on our last podcast recording, which was obviously the NHL players all going back to the Olympics in 2026. So we will come to that because we will be talking about Team GB and their success in their stages there. So hold that thought and we will come back to it. Boys, I think that's it for just our standings. Have we got anything else before we move on to our main episode?
No, all good here.
Great. Well, with that, we will get stuck into our main episode, and we'll start with period 1 of hockey. Okay, period 1 is a roundup of stories and news items from close to home here in the UK. Not a lot happening this week, boys. It's been a very, very quiet week of news stories in terms of big news stories in the last 2 weeks. I suppose the main story was, 2 conversations that were happening online. And that one was from both stories, I suppose, are coming out of last night's game of Cardiff versus Nottingham in the Nottingham arena. The conversation started, the first conversation that was had, which we'll come on to in a few minutes, because it was a question that was put to us from on social media, and I'll come back to that in a second. But the first story was obviously about Pete Russell being ejected from the game following a game-winning goal for the Panthers, which was called a no goal on the ice before being overturned. Pete then, I suppose, showed a bit of
character.
He had his temper. We've seen it from other coaches across the league, but a bit of slamming of doors, some fighting with refs, some yelling going on, and he's been ejected from the game. Do we feel it'll be, will it be a further investigation, a potential, I suppose, game ban for Pete coming up? What do we think, Dave?
Personally, why not? And
why not?
Yeah. I do love a bit of character from my coaches. How could I not have been a Giants fan? Every coach we have had has had at least one meltdown per season, it's part and parcel.
Do they usually get a ban?
Normally you get like a misconduct, depending on what you do. The time Courtney threw the sticks on the ice, he got a ban. There was somebody else threw stuff on the ice. Was that Kiefer?
Kiefer recently got I don't know if he got a ban, but did he get one of those non-disclosed fines that they talk about?
He did.
In DOPS, like a fine had to be paid. It was like, okay, right. Well, how much is that worth?
So is that not what this is going to end up being? Like,
probably, but
buy the guy in the DOPS a Happy Meal and be done with it.
But I've no going forwards. They probably want to try and stomp it out. I don't have an issue. They get kicked out of the rest of the game. They lose the power to coach the team for that game. So that's usually a big punishment enough. For they went on to lose that game. So That's just one of those things. But people are freaking out, and some people, there's like
It's
two
not at the end
camps.
anyway.
Was
It
it
was.
right
Well,
at the end? Or
it
what
was right at the end.
was it-
There's still a bit to go. He was dejected from the game before the game had finished. There was still a few minutes left of the game to go. It wasn't right at the very tail end. But the question, I suppose, the next question would be to you guys was, if you've seen the video, I mean, what, how, I don't feel that there's an argument there to say that it shouldn't have been a goal. It looks like a clear, clean goal to me from watching it back.
I'm glad that
Obviously,
you're asking this question because
obviously
I
it was
was looking at it
disallowed.
going,
Yeah. I mean, there's not really much of an argument around whether or not it was a goal or not. I suppose if it went to, goal was scored and therefore either the Panthers maybe have asked for a review of the goal or someone has asked for a review of the goal and it was deemed as a goal, then I mean, it's clear. I think it's right in saying that it's clearly, from what I can see, it's a goal. I think there's maybe an argument where they said a player was in the crease or there was a player interference over the goalie, but I don't think so. I think it's a nice screening
I-
across the goalie, and his skates look. If you look close enough, the skates look like they're outside of the crease as the goal goes in. So I don't really know.
Yeah, I thought whenever I watched it back, I thought it was a goal all day long. The Devils defenseman did a poor job of managing the crease. Basically, like if he's got a problem with that, he should have turfed the guy.
Yeah.
I think he's in the crease just before it. Like when the Panthers players coming round, there's a little bit of crease time, but that's a good couple of seconds before the actual goal itself.
Yeah, it's always a hard one because nobody wants to see their goaltender being impinged, but like he wasn't on top of him, and he had full wall, whatever their gig's called. Wasn't bounds, was it?
No, it wasn't bounds on. No, it wasn't bounds on.
It's well.
Yeah.
He can't see the play, but that's because he's being screened. He has 99.9% of his crease to work with. Nobody was taking away his the ability to use his stick or his gloves. To be expecting that to be called as a.
He's a good foot. He's a good head taller than the guy in front of him.
Yeah,
so he's looking over him.
And if you're thinking that you're expecting that to be called as a no goal, it seems a bit harsh.
I guess that he is up tall. He's not down low. He has to get down to get the puck. So
but then that would be the same even if he wasn't in the crease by that wee tiny margin, he would still be in the road, and it still would have been a goal. So
the other story or the other bit that was coming out of social media about this same game held in Nottingham last night was this conversation then has kicked up about whether or not a fan should or can call themselves a neutral observer of a game and attend a game with absolutely no real as a neutral, if you will. This came because I think it was a post put out there where Sheffield fans were discussing about traveling down. Remember, it's an hour down the road from between Sheffield and Nottingham. It's not that far. And there was a conversation had about Sheffield fans traveling down to this Nottingham Cardiff game to watch the game and to, I suppose, not necessarily support the Nottingham Panthers, but I guess to go down and kind of represent the Sheffield Steelers, who are currently sitting top, and their nearest contenders in the league at the moment are the Cardiff Devils. And I suppose it was taken from that point of view. Some people were saying, well, actually, no, the Sheffield fans are going down and supporting the Nottingham Panthers, and therefore, like, hell's freezing over what is going on. I thought this was supposed to be the biggest rivalry in UK ice hockey. That's why I kind of joked around with you guys in our opening about going to certain games over the past 2 weeks, being neutral supporters or non-neutral supporters. What's your take on this? I mean, we've been let's put it in context. We have been to the playoff finals weekend in Nottingham a number of times, where the Belfast Giants have either made it to the semi-finals and got put out during the semi-finals and still went to the final game. We've been to playoff finals weekend where the Belfast Giants weren't even there playing because they didn't make it to the playoff final weekend, and we were there as fans simply enjoying the game. And we've been to NHL games just simply of teams that we don't support, simply because it's hockey, we love hockey, and therefore we want to go and have that experience. What's your take on this? I mean, it got people really riled up Dave, what's your thoughts in terms of going as a?
Yeah.
Sorry, Aaron, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No,
go ahead.
Also polite. I've been to quite a few games where Malmo, don't even speak the language, and still went to the game. Absolutely no skin in the game. I just enjoy watching the sport. You wouldn't say this like people. This is really random. This is a bit of a side thing. Some other David Eaton on Twitter was talking about this, and I was like, so I was talking. I agreed with him, and he said the same thing. You wouldn't say this about football. People go watch football every day, all day, every day. Just put Sky Sports on and watch football all day, and nobody bats an eyelid. But if you're ice hockey, apparently it's more, tribal.
I don't know, would they not? I'm sure they would.
They probably do for some games, but he was saying like if he was a Forest fan or something, but he would stick on like a
But that's sticking it on. That's sticking it on TV. That's different. There's a difference between sticking it on TV and
but we don't have the choice.
But that's what I'm saying. Like you would watch highlights and stuff like that on YouTube, right? That's like watching it on TV. I think here is that they're actively going, like as you said, Murray, like driving an hour down the road and paying money and going to the game. That's different than just sticking it on the television.
Well, I think if Premiership football matches were the same price as the Elite League games, I would say you would get people driving a couple of hours down the road and going and watching it.
That's fair.
But no, I went to Malmo. You've been to Gothenburg.
I've been to. I was just outside Stockholm. I went to Stockholm to see a game there. And also, where else? I think we went to two others. Germany. We've done Germany. I mean, you do.
I've scheduled entire holidays around finding ice hockey.
Is that different though? And it doesn't. I think we would go no matter what. And Dave, you've done this as well. Is it different because it's a different league? Like for us, when we're going on holiday, if we're going to the NHL, if we're going to Germany or Stockholm or anything like that, is it just, well, this is a bit different. This is a bit of an experience rather than, well, I definitely don't have any skin in this league, but I want to go to watch the hockey.
It's more difficult for us as well to make that because we're for us to make a journey to a game, we have to jump on a boat or a flight for our league. So to do that journey for as a bystander, it's a bit tricky, but we've done it for playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, there is argument. I get what you mean, Aaron, in terms of if it's kind of that experience of experiencing a different league and kind of experiencing what that league does for their games and stuff. And I kind of get what you're coming from, but if we think about obviously John's not here on the podcast, and I'm sure he would probably say what I'm about to say. But John, I remember he was I think he was in Nottingham for work one time, or he was somewhere close to Nottingham for work or something. And I remember he had a hire car for work while he was living in. It was whenever he was living in Northern Ireland, and he was over in Nottingham for like a conference or something with work, and they'd hired him a car. And I remember him taking the hire car driving down to see a Nottingham game. And I think it was probably I don't know who it was, Nottingham versus, let's just say, Guildford. I don't know who it was, but it was no teams that he didn't have any kind of, he had no skin in that game at all. Like there's nothing, he had nothing there. And there's been times where I've maybe been away for work in likes of Nottingham, around Nottingham, Birmingham, those kind of places where it's not too far to get to somewhere. And I think to myself, well, if there was game on, I would totally have went to a game, but it just hasn't happened to the point where there's been a game on whenever I've been over. But yeah, I don't know. But I guess the question I suppose here was there is there an argument that people are saying, well, Sheffield fans were definitely going down to Nottingham and supporting Nottingham there, and but I guess from the point of view, I guess from a point of view of as I said, it's if Cardiff are the team they're up against. If we were put ourselves in those shoes. Now, I'm not saying I would go away to a game. Say, for example, if Belfast was actually set in mainland England, so it was easy to get to other games. Okay, and we were in this spot where we were had a close fight with 1 and 2. At the moment, it's not really a close fight, but if it was a close fight 1 and 2, so imagine it was last year. It was us against Guildford last year. It was a very close fight between us and Guildford last year. If I had seen that Guildford were playing an hour away from me against another team, be that a Sheffield, be that an Nottingham or Manchester, whatever that might be, would I have potentially gone to watch the game towards the end of the season to see if the other team could beat the team who were going to be up against me and wear my Giants colours at that game? Probably. Yeah, I probably would. And the one thing I will
What's
say
the old
is that
saying, the enemy of my enemy is my friend?
yeah. Yeah. And I guess the thing was, whenever the photographs that I've been seeing and the images I was seeing of like fans who were down representing Sheffield, they were there in their own colours. They were there in their Sheffield colours. And I guess there's no harm. I just think it's a really silly. I just think it's really.
When the people really giving up about it, like
oh,
they shouldn't be going to these games.
Massively, yeah, massively kicking off. But like it was ridiculous. Like some of the comments I was reading were ridiculous. Like people were like, you need to get your head checked if you're going to be going down and supporting them. Blah 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 blah. Like it was just really ridiculous things. And this is from the own fan base. This is from like the Sheffield fans calling the other Sheffield fans for going down to Nottingham. It was just, and then it was also the same of Cardiff fans. Then basically like, can you believe they're doing this? And I'm like, yeah, it's great. Shithousery. It's getting you riled up. It's like getting in your heads. Of course, it's going to work. It's great.
It's only an hour as well. An hour down the road isn't that far.
No, it's really not.
And they don't necessarily. They could live in between.
Yeah,
could be 20 minutes down the road.
Could be.
Yeah, hockey's hockey.
Could be.
Enjoy the game.
Hockey's hockey. Indeed. Guys, I think that's actually it for the stories for period one. We do have one penalty box, which we will cover now before we get stuck into period two. I'm just going to add on a comment there before we move on. Anthony, joining us again this week. Thank you very much. Adult pays money to attend entertainment event. Clearly, I know. Shocking, shocking. As I said, we've got one penalty box thing, so we'll get stuck into that and we'll have a quick chat about that before we move on to our period two. This is
just before you start, Marty. I thought that Anthony was talking about something completely different.
It came through my head as well. That's why I was like,
he's a fan of watching Northern Irish news these days.
What? Yeah. Does he? It's quite interesting. Yeah. The Devonish Arms.
Good one, Dave. Good one.
It's got a secret camera in the Devonish.
For anybody in England who's seen the Devonish Arms or the Devonish trending on X this past weekend, I'm sure they were just really confused. One I know it's kind of off topic, but one comment that I said, one topic that I seen, it said about it was like someone said on X when it came up, it said what is a Devonish and why is Belfast trending? Good question. Anthony was just another one there. Dave, what do you do on a Wednesday night in East Belfast? It's your own business.
I think I sent them to you. Northern Ireland tees were right within hours having t-shirts with all the sayings about the Devons. Absolutely amazing. Yeah. Well done, Northern Ireland tees.
Senior man, the Devonish ship was pretty funny. Anyway, let's get back on topic. This week or last week, there at the end of last week, DOPS put out a statement for a 3-game suspension for Nottingham Panthers Felix Para, number 29. The Coventry Blaze versus the Nottingham Panthers game on the 4th of February. He got 3 games for headbutting. Video showed the play stopped in Coventry net and a small scrum ensues with players from both teams. After initial scrum dissipates, Para engages McNulty through direct contact with his head, directly contacting McNulty in the visor face area, and it was deemed as headbutting. He received no history, so no additional added on fines or bans for that. But he did receive 3 games for that head contact, and also probably a fine somewhere in there. Does it say anything about a fine? I don't know. Let's have a look. Yep, fine. Undisclosed fine. Guys, have you seen the video for this one? What's your thoughts? 3 games ban for a headbutt. What do you think, Dave?
It's a soft headbutt, but it's the stupidest thing a player could do. Like, it's especially considering where the ref is. He's stand beside him. It was sort of it's just idiotic. Like, you're going to get a ban for that. That's just as it is. It's, same as using your foot. It's considered a non-usable part of your body for hockey. So sticking the head in, or sticking the knee in, or sticking the boot in, it's just not on.
I liked how you put it,
Yeah.
Mari. There was head contact. I appreciate it is a head, but it's a soft one. It's fairly soft.
I think the biggest issue and the biggest reason for the suspension, in my opinion, probably came from the fact that McNulty didn't respond and didn't engage with it. So it looked more like a one-way type affair, and I think that probably didn't help the issue too much. I don't think that really helped with the case. But 3 games, probably that's.
Is that on par?
Probably.
It's a bit weird. It seems a bit. It's heavier than some of the actual dangerous plays we've seen, but just because it's completely stupid.
Yeah, who knows? But that's what it is. That's the only one that's came out of Dobbs since our last podcast. It seems to be quite light the last few weeks, which is probably either a good thing or it's or it just means there's more to come later in the season. Who knows? Who knows indeed. That's it for period 1. That's it for period 1. So we'll just get stuck into our period 2 if that's okay with you guys.
Sounds like a plan. Hello and welcome to period 2 of hockey, where we'll talk about ice hockey from everywhere in the world but the UK, apart from the fact we're going to talk about the UK. Marty, so as usual, you've done most of the homework, so I'll hand it over to you for you to run through them, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, just as you said there, we did add the UK news story into international hockey because it technically is international play, so therefore that's why it falls within our period 2. But this is obviously Team GB advancing. On our last podcast, I know Aaron, I think you were watching at one point, I think, live while John was giving me live updates, and my soul left my body. I think at one stage, I think you can clearly see.
That was horrible.
I think there's a point. I think there's a point if you go back and watch the last podcast, you watch it on YouTube. There's probably a point where you just see my face and you see you can just see it where I've just lost the will, and I'm just kind of like, right, let's just continue with this. I will put out now, and I'll make the statement very loud and clear. And I probably shouldn't because it means John will make it worse. But those games, those episodes that fall on live games, when John is probably, I dread them. So from now on, if you see me putting into our calendar, guys, you want to change the date of the podcast to a different day, one of the reasons why is probably because there's a live game on. But in saying that, we were keeping track of the Team GB games, or the game that was live on the last podcast, and that tournament ended. That Olympic qualifying round ended with Great Britain securing their place to the final Olympic qualification round in August 2024. GB will be moving forward to the next stages, which will be the stages where they'll travel to Aalborg in Denmark, and they will be playing against I suppose the next teams up in relation to kind of securing that last spots into the actual Winter Olympics for 2026. Boys, it's pretty exciting when you think of
the group was announced, I think, as well. It was Japan, Denmark, Norway, and GB, I think.
Yes, I know Japan and Denmark definitely, and I can't remember. I think that fourth, Anthony, you can correct us now. You can put it in there for me. Thank you very much. But yes, we do have that to look forward to. I mean, coming back to kind of the comments you made at the start there, Dave. You know, when we were talking about the NHL. Obviously, seeing these NHL players coming back to the Olympics in 2026. It's going to be interesting to see if Team GB can qualify in Denmark and make it through to that final those Olympic that Olympic round and coming straight into the Olympics. I mean, can you imagine the likes of like
it's
Austin Matthews?
Unreal,
it's just crazy when you think about it.
Our own Jackson Whistle blocking shots from Austin Matthews. Yeah, it'll be an interesting one. Davy Phillips taking Ovi to the boards, it'll definitely be something to behold if it does happen.
obviously the next round, as we mentioned already, will take place in Denmark, and that will be taking place around August time, which means that they will have a few months then between then and also obviously the Olympics starting, Winter Olympics starting, which probably I think is January 2020. Is it January 2026? So there's a bit of a big gap between 2024 and 2026, I guess. But do we feel that the build up, how, I suppose the question I was going to ask was, if fingers crossed, touch wood, if Team GB are able to succeed and move through to the Olympics following these qualifiers in August 2024, what do we feel needs to happen, or how do we feel that they maintain or kind of capitalize on that, I suppose, that success, and to kind of bring them right through until almost a year and a half later, where they will actually be sitting facing these NHL players and these high caliber teams in the Winter Olympics? Dave?
GB needs to the UK needs to a lot more time for GB play. That qualifier was an absolute travesty. The teams were going off and playing, missing these people, which meant that even if people wanted to watch GB play, they were sort of having to pick between GB and their team. And some people's teams, the Giants are a prime example, their team is more important to them than GB. But if it was a dead weekend, people might decide to go away for it, and go and watch it. I, for one, would love to have went to see it, but I'm not gonna go. No, it was the weekend I was away, so it wasn't, I think. So it doesn't really, it wouldn't have worked for me. But it's just sort of, in general, not having these international breaks, it hurts the sport. It puts GB on a non-equal footing. Giants, for example, we lost 4.
Yeah. Plus, also, then we also lost others to other teams too. Don't forget, so it wasn't just
Tedesco went for a training camp or something. So it's it needs to have a time allotted for it. May it be a weekend mid-season, like for that qualifier, or even just a training break to allow them to go and get together as a team, rather than a week before a tournament or something silly. It needs to be really thought ahead. But at the minute, the way the Elite League treats GB is there's almost no appetite for it, which is a shame. I think it all goes back to what me and John have been after for quite some time, which is a proper, all-encompassing governing body for the UK. But that's never going to happen with the way the Elite League is, and it's old boys club.
Well, let's put it in context. I don't even think it's not even just an Elite League thing. I think the fact that, the Team GB have moved through to the next qualifying stage round, the final qualifying stage round, and I don't think I heard or seen anything on mainstream media about the fact that a Team GB has been progressing forward. And we've talked about this, I think, several times. And I think Dave, I think me and you talked about this actually together at the game, the Belfast Giants game there last weekend. We talked about the fact, do we see more money being put into Team GB ice hockey for Olympic, moving forward for the Olympics? Is it going to be that August 2024 hits, Team GB qualifies for Winter Olympics, and then all of a sudden then, they wake up the government wakes up, or the sports funding bodies and government bodies all wake up and go, oh, okay, should more money be put into ice sports here in the UK? And I know they talked about, more money is being put into ice sports in the UK, blah, 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 and all that sort of thing, but it doesn't seem to be enough. And I guess what is enough, and suppose how would they determine how much more needs to be put in? But even to have some kind of recognition of the fact that the team has done so well and moved to this point, what's going to happen come August if they do qualify through? Are we going to see more of that? Are we going to see more promotion of it? Are we going to see more money being pumped in to help with moving forward? Who knows?
Yeah, it's literally going to be a suck it and see almost, because the government at the moment have no sort of interest in doing that, and at the minute it's just sort of, the people who are in the know, but everybody else doesn't.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Moving on from Team GB and sticking with our international stuff. We obviously had the final of the CHL took place this last week as well. Actually took place this week, sorry, we should say the 20th of February. We seen the European trophy, the CHL trophy being lifted and won in 2024 by Genevieve Servette, who have lifted it from Switzerland. They faced off against Skilvetta, which is the Swedish
Where's
team,
John
I believe,
when
that
you
we've
need him?
seen. I know AIK, which is the Swedish club. I believe they're the ones who were here. Did we face off against them? I want to say we did.
so, yeah.
I'm pretty sure we did. But they became, obviously, Servette became the first Swiss club to win what they call the modern iteration of the Champions Hockey League. And what they mean by that is obviously this new change of format, which they moved into this year. Obviously, having
the first Sweden, it's like the first team. The first Swedish team. It's like, oh well, it's actually the
Swiss team. So they were the modern iteration, as they called it. I guess it was a massive it was a sellout crowd, 7,135 people watched the game. It's a game itself. It is. It is a lovely trophy, and I for all the conversations and all the talk about, we always talk about it every season about, whether or not, teams from UK should be entering into it. I always say, why not? I don't imagine if I know Sheffield said, well, they made the right choice this year by not entering any European hockey, because that way they've been able to focus on their domestic league, and therefore have won in the way the domestic league because they made that decision. And that's okay in saying that. Now they can, looking back now, they probably are saying, yeah, we made the right choice. But do we see this time next? Do we see, I suppose, when it comes to the end of this season, the Steelers have won the league and are offered potentially a place in the CHL next year? Again, maybe offered a spot in the CHL, because obviously it's not guaranteed. But if they are offered a spot in the CHL as one of the what did they call the teams that came in? I can't remember what they called them, because they give like 4 spots to, I suppose, potluck kind of ones. If they offer the Sheffield Steelers, do we see the Sheffield Steelers turning down? Do we see the Sheffield Steelers turning down that opportunity if it's been handed to them next season?
I hope not,
Dave.
Yeah, I really hope not.
You would hope not at all, because if they'd said no this season, if they do, and they've done as well as they have, then they may as well go and try to prove it even further.
It's going to the Champions League is more than just going to Europe. It's a big step. Some of these teams you're playing against are world renowned, and it's a chance to prove yourself on that stage. Will you always win? No, but will you always have a challenge? 100%. And the Giants have proved that it's possible to challenge in that environment as well, and it's I think that any success on that level is ideal. The more the elite league can be seen in those global standings, the better.
That's exactly
at what point do they, if teams from the AHL say no,
I would say
would they just turn around and say, well, we're not going to offer it anymore?
Yeah, I think it would be one chance.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you. I kind of think it's better for the elite league to be represented in the CHL. Whether or not we can compete to that level of, say, the example of these two teams who obviously finished in the final. Whether or not we can compete to that final is probably, I'm not going to be deluded and think we could, that's a possibility anytime soon. But as you say, Dave, to have the elite league branding, the elite league name, and UK hockey there, and at least being represented in some ways, even if it's like something as simple as like being in the NHL game, something along those lines, even kind of keeps the elite league and keeps UK hockey represented, and I think that's very important. So it'll be interesting to see next season if the Sheffield Steelers are offered a spot, if they will take that. I'd like to think they will, but you never know. Stranger things have happened. Keeping with the CHL, there was one other thing that was announced this week from the CHL, and that was post CHL. They always talk about things. They do fan polls, and I suppose they do best of the year. So they decide on things like best forward of the year, best goal of the year, best player of the year, blah, 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 blah. Best goal of the 2023-2024 CHL season was awarded to the Belfast Giants' Daniel Tedesco for his beaut of a goal in the SSE Arena. I can see why it's against Salzburg. I can see why it was in the OT, and it was just one of those goals that, again, just sent the place rocketing. The whole place erupted when that goal was scored. Beautiful goal, but also I suppose the resulting reactions, shall we say, probably also help cement kind of what would be why that goal was so special. And I have to say that it wasn't just the goal, but I think the setup even for that goal too, from Quentin Preston, I believe it was. I think that was also a thing of beauty too. Yeah, well deserved. And I think that's probably a lot of Giants fans jumping in there and voting quite a lot, which probably helped seal that kind of that accolade, I suppose, for the season for Daniel Tedesco. So fair play to him. Last story, Dave, I have for you for this period is obviously this past week as well, or at the end of last week, so over the weekend, I think it was. The Pittsburgh Penguins held a almost 50-minute ceremony, shall we say, for a Jaromir Jagr, who had his jersey retired and his number retired, number 68. Was retired and put up into the rafters for the Penguins. Obviously, he won 11 seasons in Pittsburgh. And I don't know if did you see the video package and what they did for the warm up for this game? Did any of you catch it?
I didn't
So
know.
if you haven't seen it, go and find it. I'll try and find the video and try and put the video up. But if you haven't seen it, what they did with the video for this, for the entrance part of it, was that they had all of the players, the current Penguins players, skate out with Jager's number on the back with wigs, really bad mullet type wigs on their heads. As they all skated out onto the ice, and the last player to come on and to skate out onto the ice was Jaromir Jagr himself. He skated out with his own jersey on and everything else. He had a speech, and I guess, he's one of those players who is a true, I suppose, franchise name for the Penguins. And I mean, I'll come to it. Mark had put through a question. I don't know if we're going to get to it, but Mark put through a question about the fact that, is there any other team in the NHL and that can say they have a as big a lineup or big of names as the Penguins have had over the course of their history? Obviously he's made the case of the fact that you've got Lemieux, you've got Jagr, you've got Crosby, so you've got all these big players who have had hundreds of games played. I mean, it's well played, and I think if you haven't seen the video, go and watch it. It is pretty good, pretty fun. But 50 minutes, guys, for basically it's almost giving Sheffield a run for their money for their opening.
Yeah. It's almost as good as the Preds doing the banner for everything. It must take them about 50 minutes every time they start a match.
Definitely. But it was definitely worth it. There was a victory lap as well from Jagr as well, and it was definitely a special few days and definitely a special night there in Pittsburgh. And I'd say if you haven't seen it, we'll fire the video up. I'll try and find it and I'll fire it up on our social medias so you can see it. But yeah, it's worth it. There is a photo that came out this last few days of those key players from Pittsburgh. There's been a lot of arguments as well about whether or not the lineup that the Pittsburgh Penguins have put out in terms of their Mount Rushmore, if you will, of players can be if there's any other team that can compete against it. And I would say probably the Oilers, probably the only other closest team who could maybe claim something just as big. The Oilers have had some major names and some major achievements there over the course of their history. And I would include the fact that you've obviously got McDavid now there. So yeah, interesting. I'm sure Mark will disagree, but that's probably my take on it anyway. I think that's it, Dave.
I'm sure knowing what we've seen from Jagr, I'm sure he was itching just to start that game, never mind anything else. But yeah, I think he's probably wanting to keep that jersey on and get stuck in with the rest of the players. All right, I think that that's all the bits. There's no overtime in this period, so we will move on swiftly to period 3.
With John not here, I'm assuming I'm on period 3 duty. Yep. Welcome to period 3, what we always love to call general knocky news.
Knocky news.
Good job, Aaron. Look at you catching up. Yeah.
Catching on. Oh, there's someone not here. I better do something. So, Marty, I want to ask you with this one, how do you want to play period 3? Because there's something going on with period 3 this or is that for later on? Is that 14 for 14 after period
14. Yeah, that's after period 3. Yep. Don't worry, we'll come on to that later. We'll come on to that. Don't worry.
Okay.
No, we'll get stuck into period 3. Again, I'm going to take over just because I put all the stuff in. So sorry, guys. Just my voice again. We've got 2 main things I want to talk about. We're obviously the period 3. Definitely, I'm thinking about having to rebrand it next season into this kind of like a jersey period, because for some reason the last few episodes we've done have been all about jerseys and jersey designs, probably because of probably to blame the Belfast Giants mostly for it. So we'll talk about that.
To be fair, we wore our teal one last weekend. It was amazing.
We did. We wore the teal jersey. Exactly. Yeah.
But to be fair, you've got one story in here that's not jersey related.
Yeah, let's go with that one first. We'll go with that one first. This is a story just because I've seen it, and obviously one of the other big things that we love on this podcast is dogs. And this week the Nottingham Panthers. Today, actually, the Nottingham Panthers put out a story this morning. If anybody remembers, last year we talked about the fact that the Nottingham Panthers were supporting the local guide dogs charity in Nottingham, and they, as part of that, they were taking on they were taking on a representative guide dog for the team, and they put out a fan poll last year to decide on what the guide dog should be called. Following that vote last year, the dog was decided they were going to name it after David Alexander Beauregard, who played obviously for the club between 2010 and 2013. And they called the dog Bo. And Bo, for the first time, visited the Motorpoint Arena after training this week. And there's a brilliant video. He's a golden retriever pup, still in training. And he visited the arena there this week for the first time. And if you haven't seen it, the video is well worth a watch, because he is a beautiful, happy boy who gets on the ice and has just a great time. We love seeing the dog videos. And you missed it last week. I think it was last week, Aaron. You missed the video we put together where we were talking about was it last week we were talking about the dogs of the was it the Oilers dog competition that they have? I think it was yes. Yeah, the dog board. The thing they have for their own skills competition type thing, and they have the dogs on the ice. We talked about that in the last podcast. But yeah, it's just another one. But yeah, if you haven't seen it, go watch the video. We'll link it to on our social medias. It's
even
good fun.
The thumbnail for the video, meet Bo with that amazing big beautiful smile, just makes you want to click on the video to watch it. So I'll be doing that after this podcast.
For anybody who doesn't know, here in the UK, we do have one main charity in the UK. It's the largest guide dog charity. It's the only guide dog charity in the UK in terms of training dogs to work with blind and partially sighted people. They enable those with sight loss across the UK to have their own freedom and independence, and to live life to the best they can, and to keep as independent as can in the most safest way as possible. The dogs here are trained on lead walking, on guiding specific routes, and they're highly skilled and trained over the course of a couple of years, if you will. It's not straight away; it doesn't happen straight away, and they are paired with people based on the person's need for the dog, but also the person's lifestyle, person's ability, everything you can think of is all taken into account before they compare a dog with a person. So it is great to see. And if you are interested, we will also add some links to Guide Dogs charity as well, in case you want to follow some guide dogs. And if you want to donate yourself to Guide Dogs, we'll add that on. Hopefully my own charity organization doesn't hear me promoting another blind charity, another blind person charity, promoting the enemy. We all work together in the sight loss sector.
Oh yeah,
it's okay.
sure you do.
It's okay. But yeah, brilliant. Bo is a beautiful dog. So yes, one of the highlights, I will say though, one of the highlights of my work day is if I'm in work and if one of the if someone comes in with their guide dog, you just know straight away I'm over being like, hi, how are you? Oh, you got a guide dog, I see. Oh, nice. Can I pet your pet dog? Can I pet him? Can I play with him? And usually you'll find me on the floor to get the guide dog normally, which is pretty normal for my day of work if there's a guide dog around.
I seen the best video with a guide dog in it recently there, and it was showing the difference between when the guide dog's harness is on and when the guide dog's harness is off. And the guy was walking in, got into his house, and he took the harness off, and the dog stole his shoe.
Yeah, I mean, we there's a lady who used to work with me, who had a guide dog, and she would bring the guide dog in, and exactly the same as you were saying there, Dave. When the guide dog had its harness on, beautifully behaved dog. I mean, immaculately behaved. Didn't stray from its task. Didn't stray off a line. Stayed exactly doing what it needed to do. But as soon as the dog's harness was taken off, and if it was around lunchtime in our office, that dog was straight over being like, oh, what have you got there? I can smell something. I can smell some lunch there. Are you going to share with me? And there was one day where it was all like, she came out of one of the offices and said, Martin, would you mind looking after while I'm in this meeting? I was like, yeah, of course. Not a worries. And she had to go back and be like, yeah, do you want to come out and just check and see? Because it was honestly, it was just going mental. It was fun. But yeah, it's strange how just as soon as that harness goes on, perfectly behaved. But yes, go check out Guide Dogs, and we'll add the link to that too. Sorry, I got distracted again by dogs. The other story, or the other thing that we enjoy on this podcast, as we mentioned, is a good jersey, and I'm gonna quickly share this week's batch of jerseys with you guys. We're going to start off with the jersey that's probably caused maybe the most controversy, shall we say, this week. The Belfast Giants announced about 2 weeks ago that they were going to have, through a cryptic social media post, they put out to say that they were going to have a themed night, which is coming this coming weekend, this Saturday, and it is a cowboy night, I believe, is the official theme of the night. Other people have called it the Bomber Appreciation Night, because Jeff Baum and his dad are quite well known for quite like an Stetson and the kind of country life anyway. And as part of this weekend, let me just take off that Brandon so it looks right. As part of this weekend's festivities, they have put together this jersey, and they've released it officially released it today, the design for the jersey for this coming weekend. Now, I seen someone on X earlier on, before I came onto the podcast, to put together a list of the jerseys the Belfast Giants have put out this season, and I would agree that if you look at the list in black and white on paper, it looks quite extensive about the number of jerseys the Giants have put out this season. And I will sound like a hypocrite, because probably about 2 podcasts ago, we were talking also about the Belfast Giants picking out jerseys for Chinese New Year, and we were talking about the Giants picking out jerseys for I think it was the Cancer Awareness Night, or I think was it one of the cancer charities that they were supporting as well that same weekend. And my argument on those were the fact that, like, whenever it's those kind of jerseys, when we're talking about like the Chinese New Year, those jerseys, we knew that the funding and stuff was going to local charities around Northern Ireland and needed charities that really do require help and support, because they do great things. Some people then argued about, well, this isn't the charity for this jersey, and this jersey, the money from this is going into the Giants' pocket. Therefore, maybe kind of helping with bigger name players next season. I don't know. But first off, I kind of want to get your thoughts first off on the jersey itself, and then secondly, I want to get your thoughts on the fact that we do continue to see these special edition in inverted comma jerseys coming. Dave, let's go with you first. When you seen this, I know you were kind of disappointed.
Yeah, it's not a bad jersey, but I had my heart set on double denim. I was expecting denim jacket with a denim waistcoat and a denim shorts, the whole shebang, sort of modern cowboy rather than classic cowboy. I thought it was going to be something like that. No, I don't hate it. It's the catchphrase, say what you see. It's a cowboy jersey, it's all right. It's a bit more Sheriff Woody than
I was going to say it's Toy Story, right?
Yeah, than sort of Clint Eastwood or whatever. But that's all right.
It's Toy Story meets Sean McMorrow, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
Well, yeah. I think when people seen this and they seen the Sheriff's Badge show, I think a lot of people were just like, "Oh, is Sean McMorrow coming back for one night only?" And you know what?
I seen a friend of the show turn around and say that a certain substance was back on the menu.
Well, I did see that also. I did see that. Yeah. The less we talk about that, the better. But yes.
But are we going to say what John's reaction was to it?
What was John's reaction?
Loved it. Absolutely
John's
loved
favorite
it.
jersey.
He loved it.
Really?
Yeah.
That would be like John, to be fair.
He said out of all the he said out of all the jerseys that ever been created by the Belfast Giants, this is probably his favorite one out of them all.
Yeah. He's even trying to get us to buy tickets and everything to try and win one. So.
Yeah. I think he's probably going to send me like 30 or 40 quid probably on Monzo over the weekend to kind of get him some Sheriff back tickets.
I think John could pull this off.
Yeah,
I think John could pull that jersey off. Yeah.
I think John owns that outfit, just not as a jersey.
Over at the Michigan.
Yeah,
so he wears when he goes out into the countryside.
I was thinking about he was wearing it over in East Belfast.
The jersey.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. As I was just saying, it's one of those jerseys that, like, I think to steal from. I was watching a few from the Bridge a few weeks back, and to steal from a comment that Todd Kelman had made in relation to. We'll go back to the fact that we're talking about the chains and stuff that the Cardiff put out this year. There is a bit of an argument where people were saying, well, Todd made a comment to say, when did it become a point where, like, hockey fans in the UK lost their sense of humor, and took themselves so seriously that something as innocent as like that chain, which they kind of thought would put some smiles on people's faces, or this Howdy partner jersey that has been created by the Belfast Giants, like, why are people so up in arms about it? And there has been some mixed reaction and some massively negative reactions online today whenever they've seen the jersey, but also a lot of arguments about the uniqueness, I suppose, of game worn jerseys and unique style jerseys whenever there's just so many. And there is a bit of a question around, and Dave, you joked around about there. We were wearing our teal jerseys for the first time there the other day. It's another jersey that will follow, and another jersey it will come in March, and we know there's going to be another weekend coming in March where another special edition jersey, because we're going to show two of them in a minute, will appear for the Belfast Giants as well for that one. Do you think there is a point where enough is enough and there's too many special edition jerseys have been created?
No.
I was about to say, I think you're asking the wrong person. I
was taking stock of my special edition jerseys. But no, I'm sort of with Todd. If it doesn't hurt anyone. No one's making anybody buy these items. It makes the home jersey maybe a little bit more special. If you own a game worn, it's a little bit more special. It's not one given out every week. Yes, you do like to see your team wear their home jersey. But a bit of fun. It's not hurting anybody. It's a nice wee design. And it's not just the Elite League. There's an awful lot of leagues across the world are doing theme nights. I think the difference being is a lot of the theme nights would be warm-up jerseys. But then there's a sort of a flip on that, is then people are still bidding on these warm-up jerseys, or the Wild, for example, is wearing is not even wearing, because of the ban, the Black History Month jersey, which they're not even wearing because of the NHL ruling. But they're still auctioning them, and they're still auctioning them for an awful lot of money. At least I know that this isn't for a particular cause or anything. This is just for a bit of fun. But at least they're wearing them, and whenever you win it, you've won a game worn. It's a piece of memorabilia that'll never be made again.
I think what you said there, Dave, is exactly my thoughts in terms of it's not harming anyone, and people, they're adult. And again, still going back to what Anthony said earlier on, adults spending their money on whatever they want to spend their money on. This is another case of that. If someone wants to part money for this jersey, like it's a bit like Oktoberfest earlier this season. I loved the Oktoberfest jerseys. I thought they were just completely over the top, and I loved them. And I just think people will spend their money on it, and at the end of the day. And you can argue differently if you want, but we talk about this all the time about how our league each team and our league isn't swimming in money. It's not swimming in cash. And if you do want to keep your team afloat, if you want to entice players in, quality players in, you need to have a bit of money in order to do such things. And what's the harm in if people are happy enough to part with their money and they know what they're parting their money for, and they're getting something out of it that's exclusive and a little bit of memorabilia that's unique, as you say, what's the harm? I don't see any harm in it, and I think if you can make a bit of extra money for your team and that's the way to do it, then do it. And I like the fact that the Giants are clear about the fact that, like, if it is a jersey that is for charity, then they're clear about this money this week is going to X charity. This one we know is not going to charity. This one is going into the Giants' pocket. And that's fine.
Which is fine.
There's no ambiguity.
But again,
it's clear, it's transparent, and that what you're saying, Marty, is honestly what I was just going to say. It's either supporting the team or supporting charity. Plus, you've got to keep doing it, because if you're going to rename this or redo period 3 to be jerseys only, then we need them to keep it up next year to do
be one every 2 weeks.
Yeah,
it's fine. It's fine, because if the Giants don't do it, then at least the league will give us reasons to create jerseys anyway. And that brings me swiftly on to our next 2 jerseys, which were released this week. The first one coming out of Coventry today. As you might know, if you're here in the UK, the Elite League will be holding their annual retro, in inverted commas, I'm going to call it, or heritage jersey, whatever way you want to call it. I think some people call it retro weekend and some people call it heritage weekend. But I think it's officially classed by the Elite League as retro weekend. The Elite League's retro weekend, I think, takes place this year on the 9th and 10th of March. So 2 weeks time. And the Coventry Blaze will be wearing this jersey, which is a play on their, I want to say, is it their anniversary jersey? Their, sorry, the league winning season 2009-2010 jersey. So it's a throwback to that jersey, and that's what they've created. So they've created a new style version of that jersey from that season. Which looks like this. I mean, it's Coventry colors, it's Coventry thing, and it looks like any other Coventry jersey. Does it look retro? I don't know. It doesn't.
Look, it's got the old logo on it.
True. It's very true. And it's being created by a different brand, I suppose, a different jersey provider is creating it this time. So this is the Coventry take on it. Sheffield have also put theirs out. Sheffield have put theirs out, and this is the Sheffield one. So Sheffield have went for what they're calling their 1997 season look. So this is a proper retro throwback to 1997.
Was that not?
The one thing I will say is
in 97 instead of blue.
What?
Should it not have been teal?
I think it is. Blue? I think it is. I think it is teal. I think it just looks a bit blue on the screen there. But I think the quality itself, when you look at the actual image itself, I think the one that they put out on social media, it looks more teal on their social media one. It does look quite teal actually. The one thing I will say is, and I said this about the Sheffield Steelers last season, their retro jersey last season was spot on. It was great. I really liked their one last season, and I think they've done the same again this season. I think they've done what went really well, and I really like it. I think they have properly embraced the whole idea of their retro throwbacks. Let's not talk about my disappointment from last season with the Belfast Giants. My only hope is that if the Belfast Giants continue the trend, hopefully hopefully they'll do something more bold this year with their retro jersey and maybe create more of a retro look. Maybe a throwback to the old logo. Don't know, maybe. Doubt it, but as I said before, if a retro jersey could just be an old jersey look, but with the new Giants logo, perfect, great. You're on the winner. Just not this Belfast
I don't like
font with the random jersey design, which has no reference to any of our history. It doesn't make any sense to me. But we'll see what happens, because I'm sure we will see those by the time it comes to our next podcast. It'll be the other 8 teams will have put out their retro night jerseys, and we'll look forward to those. So expect another jersey watch come next episode.
Agree with that. Sheffield one is really nice. They've hit the nail on the head.
And if you go online and Google like their jersey in '97, it's fairly damn close.
Oh yeah, no, it's spot on. It is spot on. It's exactly. I think again, that's why I said it was like last season. They knocked it out of the park last season, and I think they've done the same again this year. Will it be the best one? Who knows? It was definitely the best one last year. So I wouldn't put it past them to maybe do something again this year, which is just probably better than most other people, to be fair. It's weird giving them compliments so much, but yeah, it's a compliment. I think that's it. Let me just check our running order and make sure. Yeah, I think that's it. I'm going to continue on in, Aaron, if that's okay. As always, not as always, but this week we do have, which we're glad to say, we have another 14 with 14 interview. Unfortunately, John couldn't be here for this week's episode to introduce this, but this was a interview that has been in the making since, I want to say, early December time. I think we put the feelers out. There was a conversation had with this person in this interview, and he was all for it, jumped in, and think
there's actually a discussion with him at the end of last season to see if he'd be up for it, and then it came back around when we started the 14 and 14.
Yeah, the intention was to try and have him on in January, as the first 14 with 14 in January, just after the Christmas period. But unfortunately, at the time, there was a lot of changes going on, and I think there was a few roster changes for this team, which required his attention because he's quite an important person for that team. 14 with 14 this week is the head coach and general manager of Worcester Raiders, Jordan Lavallee-Smotherman, best known in the Elite League as a former number 14 for the Belfast Giants. So without further ado, let's stick it on and get stuck into this week's 14 with 14.
I'm very pleased to welcome to Door 14 Hockey and 14 with 14, an Oregon native and current head coach and general manager in the ECHL with the Worcester Raiders. In a career spanning 20 years in the game, as a player he had stints in the AHL with the Chicago Wolves, the Syracuse Crunch and the Providence Bruins. A 2005 draft pick by the Atlanta Thrashers would lead to 4 games in the NHL before he'd then spend time in Europe playing across Denmark, Sweden, Germany, and towards the latter part of his playing career, the EIHL as Belfast Giants number 14. A Memorial Cup, Calder Cup, EIHL League and Challenge Cup champion, ladies and gentlemen, Jordan Lavallee-Smotherman. Jordan, thank you for agreeing to come on. How are you?
I'm doing good, John. Thanks for
having 14 with 14 is where we try to get to know more about the people behind the number 14 across the game, both on and off the ice. It's to give a different kind of insight and perspective for fans for sort of who these people behind the numbers and the jerseys are. And Jordan, with your experience now being behind the bench, hopefully this will be an insightful look into you and your career. If you're up for it, I'll get started with the first question.
Yeah, sounds great.
So first things first, it's like a little icebreaker question that I ask everyone. What's your go-to coffee order?
Oh, I usually just go black in the morning, and then my afternoon usually involves frost almond milk.
Nice. So it's amazing how many players I've spoken to are non-dairy. It seems to be a thing across the board.
Yeah, we don't get along, dairy and I, so I tend to avoid it.
Yeah, I'm the same. Me and dairy don't get along. Jordan, you've worn the number 14 for a number of teams throughout your career. It wasn't your only number, we should point out, though, but was there any special significance to the number 14 popping up time and time again?
There wasn't at first. I had worn Steen Jr., and that's the number I wore when I won a Memorial Cup. But it was a retired number in Chicago in the American League where I started my pro career. And so I just switched to 14. I was lucky enough to win a championship there in 14. And then several years later, won another one in Sweden wearing 14. And so it just kind of stuck as my lucky number. And then, of course, my first year in Belfast, winning 2 cups in it. It definitely is what I wear and what I will continue to wear when I play in my men's league now in retirement.
So how did you get your start in the game then? How does young Jordan Lavallee-Smotherman start his hockey journey and become, I think it's probably fair to say, and your elite prospects would say this as well, the most successful player to come out of Corvallis, Oregon?
So for me, growing up, my brother was everything that he had to do, and so when he started playing hockey, I had to play hockey, and I had to be better than him at everything he did. So I think subconsciously he pushed me to be a better player, and that's how I ended up in hockey for so long.
You're a busy man these days, not running just the bench, but also the back room in Worcester. How do you switch off from all that and relax? Or given your role now, is that even an option?
What does it mean to switch off and relax? It doesn't happen often. Our schedule is set up in a way that typically, one day off. And I try as much as I possibly can to take that day for myself, or at least the first 6 or 7 hours of it. We get up and
lost you there for a second, but you're back. Who or what do you think has been the biggest influence on your hockey career?
It's an interesting question. If I had to say, it would probably be my family. I think just the support that they gave me through my entire career, all the way up through now the beginning of my coaching career. They still come to my games, and they still root for the teams that I'm a part of. And so I would have to say that they've had the greatest influence on putting me through this long hockey career.
Yeah, it's another similarity I think with other guys that I've spoken to. His family seems to be the main reason why guys get into the game and why they tend to be successful is the people around them and the support network that creates. Thinking back to your playing career then, as one of the guys in the locker room, if you were in charge of pre-game music in the room, what are you playing to hype the guys up ready for the game?
So I was for a long time. I ran the music. My last year in Belfast, I was on music. Last year playing here in Worcester, I was on the music. It really depends on the group. Belfast guys liked a little more rap before the game. Most teams tend to lean towards the house music remixes and things like that. But there's a science to it. I don't think many people understand it. It takes some preparation time, and there's a lot of timing involved in it. It's actually it's a thankless job as well. You get 22 guys in the room before practice or before every game that you can't please every single one of them. So everybody's a critic, and they definitely let you know when they don't like what you're playing.
Jordan, I rattled off some of your achievements at the start of the interview there, and fans across North America and Europe will all have a core memory that they remember you for. For many Belfast fans, it was you announcing your arrival with that overtime goal in the Challenge Cup final in Cardiff against Guildford. One that I know that my podcast buddy Marty especially misses you in Belfast for. But over a playing career spanning 20 years as a player and a fledgling coaching and management career, has there been a standout highlight moment for you?
It's hard to pick one. I've been fortunate in my career to be a part of some really good hockey teams. So on a team level, all the championships that I've managed to win sit right there with each other. On an individual level, obviously playing my first NHL game, realizing a dream that I'd had since I was a little kid. My first NHL goal is right up there. And then obviously that Challenge Cup overtime winner right up there. Anytime you are the guy that scores the goal to win a championship, especially in a city as special as Belfast and where the team means so much to people, that one is definitely right up there in my top 3 for sure.
Amazing. You're only a few years into your coaching career now, having recently, I think around Christmas time, notched your 100th game coaching the Railers. And I think most of the congratulatory comments for that came from Belfast fans, actually, on social media. You started that journey in coaching and management, I believe, in Belfast as a player assistant coach as part of Adam Keefe's team. And now, like I said earlier, you're not just running the bench, but you're running the organisation. You're running the back room in Worcester too. How are you finding that change? And is that a direction that you always saw your career heading in?
It was. I had some health stuff happen, back in 2015, 16, I think it was, that kind of forced me to think about what life after playing would look like. And I got the opportunity to step in as an assistant coach at the end of a season in Manchester in the East Coast League, and fell in love with it. From that point on, started doing a lot of reading and studying and networking, to start preparing for what eventually would become where we're now.
And sticking with the EIHL, little connected question, if you like, or a couple of connected questions on this. Back in mid-December, you signed John Muse, formerly of the Sheffield Steelers and the Glasgow Clan. Is the EIHL a league that you still keep tabs on and keep connections with, or was bringing John on board through other connections?
Kind of a little bit of both. So he is actually friends with the former Belfast teammate of mine, Bobby Farnham, who reached out to me at the beginning of the year, and mentioned that John was looking for a place to play a season. At the time, we had 2 NHL contracted goalies from the Islanders with us here in Worcester, and we didn't have room. So I had kind of dismissed it, but then we had one with an injury that put him out for the rest of the season, and another one that had been called up, and we needed a capable veteran goalie. And John has stepped in and been fantastic for us. I think he's maybe 9-4 or 10-4, something like that, since he arrived, with like a 910 save percentage, and has been a fantastic addition to our room. So I definitely do still keep tabs on the IHL. I the Giants score almost every day, to see how they're doing, and try and tune in whenever I can. But no, that was kind of a combination of both.
And linked to that then, when you took the step over to Worcester in 2021-22, then you played a season with Will Cullen, who then the following season would move over to Belfast, and then this season was a mid-season re-signing for Belfast. Was there conversations in the room between you and Will when he made that original decision to head over to Belfast?
Yeah, I had actually spoken with Adam about that as well. We had conversations about Will as a player and a teammate, and Will also reached out to me when Belfast was interested. And so I oftentimes will have conversations with Adam. He likes to ask about players that are playing within our division that we see a lot. And we pass names back and forth when we can, and try and help each other out. But Will was definitely a part of that discussion. So I'm happy to see that he ended there, won a championship there, and is now back there again.
Yeah, and he's been a big influence coming back into the team this season as well. Jordan, having a team that gel well together and can work as a well-oiled machine is something that will be really high on your agenda these days as head coach. If you're planning a sort of team day away from the rink, away from the ice, to help the guys come together, what sort of thing would you tend to have them do?
It varies. We just look for different fun activities. I always love a good team golf tournament, especially because you force the guys that don't golf to get out there and make an ass themselves a little bit, which always gets guys laughing. Anything that is playfully competitive, I think, is a really good team activity, because it gets the guys working together. It gets them communicating. There are a number of really cool places and areas around the Boston area that we look to take guys for, whether it be escape room type stuff or little team building challenges, things like that. Anything that gets them working together in a collaborative fashion is what we look for in our team building days.
Nice. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you a little bit about the Railers season while I've got you here. It's been probably fair to say a mixed bag so far. At the minute, you're lying just outside of playoff positions. What are you asking from the guys in the room at the minute? They've got a couple of months left of the season before postseason. Postseason hockey's on the line, and you've got big games on the horizon against the likes of Orlando and Florida lying ahead of you. What are you asking of the guys in the locker room in that run-in?
Currently, really just asking the guys to stay the course. We've been playing some fantastic hockey lately. I mean, even last night we lost the game 3-2 that we, in my mind, did not deserve to lose. We've been playing teams for the most part, and we're really happy with where we're at in our process. You know, the East Coast Hockey League is a very long season, and it's about growth as you go through the season. As an organization this year and as a team, we took tremendous steps in fixing a lot of the things that we needed to fix last year and previous years. And so we like where we're sitting right now. We feel like we're a team on the rise. We've had the same group of guys for pretty much the start of the year until now. There are not many teams in this league that can say that they have 21 guys on their roster that they had in their training. So for us, I feel like we have that advantage of continuity. And that as we continue to move towards playoffs, we're going to continue to get stronger.
Amazing. Looking again off the ice and looking at you, Jordan, do you have a go-to movie or TV show that you'll binge or you'll watch again and again to try and help you unwind and try and take your mind off the hockey sometimes?
It's fun. I have my 2 or 3 shows that I throw on in the background when I'm cutting video after games to help me stay calm. Modern Family is one of them. How I Met Your Mother is another one. Seinfeld is usually a big go-to of mine. Anything light that will help me kind of relax and, like you said, wind down.
Keep the blood pressure down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What about pre-game then for you, Jordan? What does the build up on the day to a game for the Railers as a coach and a GM look like? It's been said players are, hockey players especially, are creatures of habit. So is there anything that's kind of followed you from your playing career into your coaching career things that you just have to do in the run up to a game?
Most of them involved kind of my eating rituals around the game, which I learned very quickly I couldn't do now that I wasn't playing. But it is. I mean, it is all about routine. For me as a coach now, I have my morning routine. I wake up, I have my game day breakfast. I have the things that I go through video-wise in the morning. We have our pregame skate, and then all of our meetings are scheduled throughout the day. But definitely still a creature of habit. Yeah, there's no question about that.
I said earlier on, Jordan, you're an Oregon native. You've spent time in various parts of the US and Canada during your career, and now you're managing an NHL affiliate team. So this might be a loaded question. Do you have an NHL team that you follow or that you grew up following? And if so, why them?
So I grew up a Chicago Blackhawks fan. Both my parents grew up in the Chicago area. One of their first dates was at a Chicago Blackhawks game. So I have been Chicago sports through and through for my life. As far as the Blackhawks, once I started playing, it was probably my third year junior, going into my draft year, where I watched hockey more to just watch hockey than watch it as a fan. So I always like when the Blackhawks do well, but I'd say I'm more just a fan of watching the NHL than else.
If you'd said Islanders, I was going to ask you if you were contractually obliged to say that, but you didn't, so we can skip that one.
Yeah.
To wrap up then, there's one final question that I've been asking everyone, and it's if you could go back and give 10-year-old you a single piece of advice, what do you think it would be?
There's a lot of advice I would give 10-year-old me. You know, it is it's the advice that I tend to give my players. Now, my life was hockey dominated, so my advice going back to 10-year-old me is probably going to be how to make my career even a little bit better than it ended up for me. And it would the advice I give these guys here is that be the best where you are. Don't worry about the next step. And for me as a coach, it's what I'm trying to do right now. I'm trying to figure out how to be the best at this level before I even start to think about where my coaching career could take me. And that's a big mistake made in my career, and a big mistake that I see a lot of these guys make is they think they should be at that next level, and they don't do the little things where they're at to be the best there to prepare them for that next level. So that's what I think I'd tell 10-year-old me, and maybe put in a little more time in the gym in the off season and being in better shape. That would have made a difference for me.
Jordan, massive thank you very much for giving up your time. I know you're on the road at the minute, and giving us an insight into yourself both on and off the ice. And good luck with the Railers for the rest of the season.
Thank you very much, John. I appreciate you having me.
And thank you so much to Jordan for joining us for the podcast this week. I know John couldn't be here, and John wanted us to send his thanks as well to the Raiders organization for giving us the time to have a chat with Jordan. We know he's very busy, and we really do appreciate it. It's great to see him. I'm glad that John kind of threw my name in there too. We're all massive fans of Smotherman, and I know myself. I was a huge fan of Smo, and whenever it was announced that he was leaving, I was devastated when he was going.
I can't believe that he did
call him
Smo.
It's good to hear from him, and I know, I very surprised myself. But it was good to hear from him, and good to hear his stories and kind of catch up. And fair play John for getting that organized and finally nailing it down.
Did Smo just describe the perfect neutral at a hockey game? Bringing it back to a question that you asked in period one, when he talked about just enjoying hockey for hockey.
Yeah,
sounds like
big circle.
Sounds a good way to big circle. But sorry, Dave, go ahead.
Did anybody see on X that he met a group of Giants fans that were at a Worcester game? It's just shows you the caliber of the man. That's just all I need to say.
One thing I will mention, just because I did see it today, and I kind of wanted to mention because it's another one of a big fan favorite of mine, is that the Railers do have a themed, because we were talking about themed nights earlier. The Railers do have a themed night coming up at the start of March, and they have on Saturday, March the 2nd, they have their Wizarding World of Worcester game night, which is a Harry Potter themed night, asking everyone to dress up in their Harry Potter outfits. There'll be contest prizes, and I'm going to guess a jersey of some description, and I'm going to keep my eye on that to see what that looks like, and bobbleheads as well.
Special themed bobbleheads. I want an ice hockey Harry Potter themed bobblehead. That sounds like the most unique thing in the world.
That's again another thing that brings us full circle around, because we talked about themes as well on this podcast, and we're just talking about another theme. And for this podcast, then, boys, that is it. We want to thank everyone for continuing to listen to the podcast week in, week out, and watching the YouTube version, if that's your thing. If you haven't done so already, join us on our social media channels. We're on all social media. We're on X, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and also John does like to do the odd TikTok. We're at Door 14 Hockey on that. Check out our YouTube channel, subscribe, and all that stuff, which is down somewhere, probably over this way, somewhere, pointing somewhere. Yep, somewhere. Buttons here. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. And if your usual way of listening to our podcast is old-fashioned podcast, which is the way we have always started, how it's started, what our podcast has always been. Funny that. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, rate, whatever it is on your podcast provider of choice, because it really does help in the long run. It gets us put out there and gets other people to see us and see our podcast. And we thank everyone who has done that so far. Boys, I think that's it. Oh, last thing to say is obviously other podcasts on this podcast are on our website at door14hockey.com, so you can check them all out as well. And I think that's it in terms of all of our social media channels. Did I forget anything? I don't think so. Nope. Okay, great. With that, then, we will sign off for this week. I'm Marty.
I'm Dave.
I'm Art.
Have a great week.